Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Aaron Blade, and I'm the editor, creator, and producer of what you're watching right now, Blade Talk. If you are new here, welcome, and you found this presentation helpful and informative, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Do me an even greater favor and subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate all the support that I am given. So in today's presentation, I want to tackle something that's controversial, and that is, should there be a two-state solution? Do I believe in the existence of a Palestinian state? Stick around to find out. Let's hit that intro and let's begin. All right, so I wanted to go over the controversial questions of, should there be a two-state solution? Should a Palestinian state exist? And I wanted to go over this because on Wednesday, we seen the leadership of Spain, Norway, and Ireland all state that they were recognizing a Palestinian state. The Prime Minister of Ireland stated this, and here's what it sounded like.
Last month I stood on these same steps with Prime Minister Sanchez of Spain, and we said that the point of recognising the state of Palestine was coming closer. That point has now arrived. Today, Ireland, Norway and Spain are announcing that we recognise the state of Palestine. Each of us will now undertake whatever national steps are necessary to give effect to that decision.
So I want to go over 3 reasons why there is no Palestinian state, okay? And I want to be clear that these countries are essentially rewarding Hamas. On October 6, 2023, none of these countries recognized a Palestinian state. Keep in mind, there is no Palestinian state. It exists just like Hogwarts exists, Wakanda exists, Asgard exists. The reason it doesn't exist is because it doesn't have borders, it doesn't have a government, and there is no citizenship. Now, what these countries decided to do is all symbolic, okay? It doesn't matter what Ireland says. It doesn't matter what Spain says. It doesn't matter what Norway says. And I will note that all of these countries were neutral during World War II. So they were neutral at the time of the Nazis. So I guess they want to side with the Nazis of today, that being Hamas. As it stands, there are 140 countries that recognize the state of Palestine. There is no state of Palestine. And the first reason is that there is no recognized government. Who governs the state of Palestine? Israel left the Gaza Strip in 2005. In 2006, the population elected Hamas. Hamas then decided to kill all of its political opponents, then brainwash the population, especially the children. And there hasn't been an election since. So it would be a terror government. I say this because typically governments are responsible for the safety and well-being of its citizens. No one treats Hamas as the government of Palestine or the government of Gaza, because if they did, then all of the blame for the humanitarian problems in that area would fall on Hamas and not Israel. Everyone is expecting Israel to ship in humanitarian aid. Notice, by the way, that no one, with all the human rights violations that Russia is committing against Ukraine and its innocent civilians, no one is making the argument that Russia should send in humanitarian aid. I digress. The government of Palestine, Hamas, routinely steals aid from its own people. So when you say that you support a Palestinian state, who's the government? You are literally recognizing terror groups in the aftermath of a slaughter that occurred on October 7th. The second reason there is no Palestinian state is because no Palestinian entity has ever accepted any sort of partition plan with regard to the land of Israel. There are no established borders. What borders do the Palestinians want? Well, they chant it openly, from the river to the sea. And that means wiping out all the Jews in the land. The Palestinian state is just a Trojan horse for wiping out the state of Israel. That is why no one has ever agreed to any sort of partition plan. Again, it isn't that Israel hasn't tried to establish borders. It is that the Palestinians don't want to define borders, because the moment that they define their borders, they can no longer act as a Trojan horse against Israel. The jig is up. Once Israel has their defined borders and Palestine has their defined borders, now they can't draw sympathy if something happens because you invaded Israel. The third reason there is no Palestinian state is because of citizenship. The population has been radicalized by Hamas. There is no formal way of being a citizen, and what's worse, there is no way to leave. That is why Egypt and Jordan won't take in anyone from the area, because they're worried that the population is so radicalized that it would threaten their own population and their own government. This is why I try to destroy this myth that some hold that everyone is inherently good. We all want the same thing. That's not true. There are some that believe that if the Palestinians just had a state, you just give them a state, just give them their own land, and all conflict would cease to exist in the region. There are some that believe that. And that is completely asinine. It is not true at all. The vast majority, in fact, of the conflict in the Middle East doesn't even involve Israel nor the Palestinians. Look at the Iraq-Iran war, the civil war in Syria or ISIS, the takeover of Lebanon by Iran, Afghanistan on the brink of civil war because women have lost their rights once the United States left. Pakistan expels hundreds of thousands of Afghans from its country. You have Egypt not wanting to help anyone, but they're mad at Iran. Iran launched this attack on Israel through Hamas. And the reason Egypt is so mad about Israel going into Rafah, the last area where Hamas is because they're afraid that Israel will discover the tunnels underground going from Egypt into Rafah. This tunnel is used to funnel weaponry, so they're right to be afraid. How do you think Hamas is getting these rockets and these assault weapons? Egypt has a population that hates Israel. So Egypt says, look, we aren't going to bring any Palestinians into our country. You all are too radicalized. But what we will do is we will allow a tunnel going one way, and that is for us to give weapons to Hamas. And they're afraid that Israel pushing into Rafah, they'll discover those tunnels, and then that'll bring heat on Egypt. Here's the hidden truth no one wants you to know. The Palestinian leadership, not true for all the members of the population, although by polling data, 70% of the Palestinians actually support the leadership. But the leadership does not want a Palestinian state. They don't want a Palestinian state. The reason they do not want a Palestinian state along partition lines is because at that point, again, the Trojan game is over. You can see this in the two things that they claim to want. The first thing they claim to want is a partition plan of which they have never defined, never accepted, and never specified. The second thing they want is a right of return. That means that any Arab that left or was expelled during the 1947 War of Independence in the State of Israel, them along with all of their descendants will be allowed to move back into a state in which they seek to destroy. Those are the two things that they want. The leadership doesn't want a Palestinian state. Let me give you a map that shows how much territory the Prime Minister of Israel was going to give the Palestinians. The yellow is all Palestine. There's your Palestinian state. There it is. Two-state solution. The blue are Jewish settlements. That's the Palestinian state they could have had. And the leader, Yasser Arafat, said no and then launched an intifada against Israel, which thousands were killed. That was in 2000. 8 years later, in 2008, the Prime Minister of Israel issued another offer that would split sovereignty over Jerusalem. Palestinians would have the Gaza Strip, almost the entirety of the West Bank, with land swaps to account for the fact that there are Jews that live there. So almost the entirety of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and split Jerusalem. The leader at that time, Mahmoud Abbas, didn't even issue a counteroffer. He just got up from the table and walked away. They don't want a Palestinian state, because the moment they get one, they have to, again, respect borders, and they can no longer draw sympathy on the world stage. So they don't want a Palestinian state. Palestine is just being used as a tool to justify their anti Semitic rhetoric in terms of getting rid of the state of Israel and wiping out all the Jews in the region. Personally, I don't believe that there should be a Palestinian state, because what kind of message would that send? Murder, rape, kidnap Jews, you win a state? That's justice? Don't worry about diplomacy or trying to handle things in a peaceful way. Just keep denying every proposal, and then one day invade the country and murder and kidnap people, and then you'll be rewarded one. That's the message that would be sent. So that's my personal feelings on the state of Palestine and this whole notion of a two-state solution. I want to end this presentation by busting a huge myth, okay? A big misconception, actually two of them, okay? The first is people have to get over this idea that human beings are inherently good. That is not true at all. There are some that are pushing that at our core, we are inherently good. If you believe that, there's a good chance that you are often taken advantage of in life. People are not inherently good. Human beings are in a constant battle with what we call a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Hara, basically a good desire and a bad desire. We are constantly, those two desires are constantly fighting one another, and it's our job to cultivate the good at the expense of the bad desire. So there's this secular notion in society that pushes the idea that human beings have a nature and that nature is inherently good. These people are often the ones that glorify homosexuality, praise uprisings and violence, etc. They say things like, you were the problem for saying that it's a sin. You hear people say all the time that if two people love each other, so what if they're the same sex? How could that be a sin? How could God deem this a sin? Or you'll hear something like, if you do something bad to another person, it is all relativistic immorality, and who are you to essentially judge? You also see this when people try to bend the laws of the Bible to fit their lifestyle. They twist the word so they don't have to feel guilty about violating it. I've always stated that I have no issue with someone that is missing the mark or committing a sin. They're honest about it. At least show that integrity. I've met amazing Jews that will admit that, hey, I'm Jewish, but every now and again I'll eat pork. Every now and again I'll have a bacon double cheeseburger. I know that I shouldn't, but occasionally I do. I have much more respect for that individual as opposed to the individual that says, I'm Jewish and I'm going to eat what I want. I'm going to do what I want, and I don't follow anyone's authority but my own. And God didn't even write the Torah, Has v'Shalom. God, and the laws that are in it are so outdated. They don't even apply to today. They have no relevance to today. They're just trying to justify their lifestyle, because what the Torah is meant to do is challenge you to overcome your nature, challenge you to be better and be the best version of yourself, and at the same time get you closer to God and have that relationship with God. But some people just want to, again, adhere to no one else's authority but their own. Then just go be an atheist and be honest about it. Right? I don't understand that. The second big misconception that I want to clear up is that humans generally agree on what is right and what is wrong. As a whole, that is a lie. That is false. Human beings actually don't agree on many things. Very few things do human beings as a whole agree on. Okay. And if you've been on social media, then you know this to be true. There's always that person or a couple people that always tries to flip something that is so obvious to try to, push their intelligence or I'm thinking outside the box and, from a different perspective and whatnot. Right. There are some that just like to go against the grain. Right. So you can take something like murder, and some may think that murder is wrong, but it doesn't apply to everyone equally. Right? Notice that in America, when an unarmed black man is unjustifiably killed in this country, notice that the response is nationwide. You'll know their name. You'll see the rallies, the protests, the uprisings, the t-shirts, the condemnation of police officers. How could cops be so irresponsible? They're racist. They're X, Y, and Z. There's a whole thing. Meanwhile, when a cop is killed in the line of duty, someone is just trying to issue someone a speeding ticket. But that person doesn't want a speeding ticket, or they don't want you to run their name and find out that they have warrants, so they take out a gun and kill the cop, and that cop is killed in the line of duty. Notice that doesn't really make national news, doesn't really cause a rally or a protest, stop the injustice against cops, stop the criminals. You don't see rallies like that. There's no uprising. Most people just say that, well, they know what they signed up for. It's a war out there. Doesn't apply equally. America itself killed over 200,000 innocent Iraqi citizens during the Iraq War. 72% of Americans still supported the Iraq War. Hamas slaughtered Jews on October 7th, and among young people, this is what's scary, among young people ages 25 to 34, 64% say that they support Israel, and 36% say that they support Hamas. This was right after October 7th. This is the way that Americans felt. Another poll among young people between the ages of 18 and 24. It's getting worse. 57% say that they support Israel, while 43% say that they support Hamas. Still think human beings can agree on what is right and what is wrong? You be the judge. So, personally, I'm interested in debunking this myth that is going around, and it's how the League of Nations started, that if we all can just come together, we all really want the same thing. We all are inherently good. That's a lie. Human beings are very tribal, meaning that we're all about our own cliques, whether that be family, whether that be political affiliation, whether that be religious members, whether that be country, but we're very tribal. So within this tribe, we care, but we don't care about the next tribe. And because of that bias, we will never be able to agree on what is right versus what is wrong collectively as a whole. And human beings are not inherently good. Again, there is an agenda that is being pushed that people just want to live their lives and follow no one's authority but their own. And because of that, what is good becomes subjective. It always kills me when atheists say things like, well, I don't need a Bible to tell me this and to be a good person and whatnot. But the whole premise, the whole idea of you knowing what is good and what is bad comes from Judeo-Christian values. Otherwise, there is nothing to go off of. What is the basis of morality? Who's to say stealing is bad? Who's to say murdering is bad? Slavery is bad? And so if we're just going based off our own subjective ideas, how can you have a society like that? Because we're not all going to agree on hardly anything. So I just wanted to debunk those huge misconceptions. Human beings are not inherently good. And as a whole, we do not agree on what is right and what is wrong. Some people try to manipulate things to suit their lifestyle because they don't want to change. Rather than saying that I know what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm not there, I'm missing the mark. That is vastly different from someone that tries to discredit the law entirely. They question the source. They question, well, why do I have to do this? And I shouldn't have to. And that was written so many years ago. They do the same thing with the Constitution here in America. It needs to be rewritten because this or that, and it doesn't apply to us today, and et cetera, et cetera. The fact is the reason that I still follow the Torah and is still relevant today is because human nature doesn't change. Human nature itself doesn't change. And what the Torah does is challenge us to be better and overcome our own selfish biases, to care about someone else. So that's my personal opinion on the Palestinian conflict, the Palestinian state, and again, debunking a huge misconception. So if you found this presentation helpful, informative, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Do me an even greater favor and subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate all the support that I am given. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Blade Talk. Be good to yourselves, be good to others, and until the next episode, you all take care.